Well, hello, everybody. Oh my gosh. I wanted to do something different for the podcast today. I wanted to be out here in the wide open, outside, out by the pool. It's such a beautiful day here in Texas, and I love the topic that I decided to share today. And it all happened because of a text that I've started. What the text was about, we were talking about the 5 different love languages. Words of affirmation for me is number 1, and there's a really deep reason behind that. So let's dive into it.
Welcome to the Soul Wide Open podcast with your host, author and certified trauma-informed coach Michelle Renee.
Okay, so I can't read this text without my glasses. All right, so I said, what's your number 1 love language? And she said, I'm needy. I need them all. And I laughed, and she said, it's true, though. I feel like they are all connected. And I thought that was just absolutely a brilliant way to respond. And I said, your message thanking me and recognizing how much I worked in a location on this big event that we did together out of the country, not in just the studio, but around the entire event, means a lot to me because my number 1 love language is words of affirmation. And here's where the deep part comes in. I grew up being called a piece of shit and told that I would never be anything. I didn't even know how to accept a compliment until I was in my 40s. So thank you for sharing that. In my house growing up, words of affirmation and compliments and accolades did not come around very often. And when they did, like my dad was super into sports and really competitive, and it was always about winning. So when it was something that like we won a game or we got the game winning, hit or catch or something like that, it was like, yeah, that a boy, that's my girl, that's my boy, it was that. But it was never, hey, I saw how hard you really tried this or did this, or, the house really looks amazing. I know that probably took a lot. And for my mom, I now that I'm older and I look back and I can see, everything that she was navigating at that time. My dad, who was a complete rageaholic and very controlling, very much in his ego, very narcissistic. And she had 7 kids and she was navigating all of that. And he would leave and disappear and take the money. And she was working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over our head. And sometimes that didn't work. And sometimes the food wasn't really there. And so there was a lot that my mom was dealing with. So imagine her trying to dole out compliments and, accolades to 7 kids. And with everything else going on, I can't only imagine how challenging that was for her. So those didn't come from her very often because her capacity to just even be able to tap into that place and do that, I can only imagine that bucket was probably empty most of the time, As, I got older and I left home at a really young age, getting out into the world, I didn't have that tool to depend on or to even know what that felt like or to know that I even deserved that. And as I've grown and as I've decided, like, I'm going to really dive in deep to all of the things in my life that make me tick, it really dawned on me how important it is for us to be the leaders in our lives when it comes to sharing and telling other people what we need and what our love language is. And we can't do that unless we know ourselves, not only what our love language is, what really speaks to us, what lights us up, what sets us on fire in the best way, but we have to do that for ourselves first. Like when we begin to understand, okay, this is what my love language is, and going back to my childhood, like diving into all that and dissecting all of that and really beginning to understand that my absolutely fragmented sense of self-worth, so fragmented, I needed to understand the pieces of that. You can't put those pieces back together in any way. And I don't even mean back together, but really figure out how you can make something really meaningful out of those fragmented pieces. And it's possible, but we have to be willing to recognize those fragmented pieces. We've got to be willing to pick those up. We've got to be willing to work with those fragmented pieces in order to create something that is meaningful, that is going to be something in our life that we actually turn out or end up being really proud of. I'm really proud of taking the fragmented pieces of not only my self-worth, but my past and, my childhood and my life, and turning it into something really meaningful and something that I'm really proud of. But that wouldn't have happened if I didn't go, okay, I need to dissect this. I need to get back in there and really try to understand my fragmented self-worth. And that didn't start happening for me until I learned about the 5 love languages. And that and the other book, The 4 Agreements, those books were game changers for me in my life. And when I started diving into it, yes, I totally agree with my friend. They're all necessary. We need them all. I mean, I love physical touch. Like I'm a total affectionate lover girl, and gifts. I love gifts, but it's funny because your love language when it comes to receiving and your love language when it comes to giving usually are different. And mine are different. I enjoy, giving compliments and words of affirmation, but I love giving gifts. I mean, I love shopping for gifts. I love surprising people for no reason, just to be thoughtful and say, hey, I was thinking about you, or this reminded me of you. Like, my giving love language is probably number 1 is giving gifts. But receiving, I love quality time too. Like sitting with my daughter when she was here out by the fire pit and just talking and catching up and listening to music, or playing backgammon with an espresso martini in my room and just having candles lit. I mean, playing music, it was so amazing. Quality time is big, big, big for me too. But words of affirmation, because of the way that I grew up, and I think physical touch too, I didn't grow up with really a lot of positive physical touch at all. I grew up with a lot of negative physical touch. So that one has been a little bit harder for me to get to a place where positive physical touch was something that I really recognize and celebrate. But words of affirmation, learning about, and the way that I translated that is how valuable being kind with your words is. And when my friend said that in that text, it just reminded me of how important it is to be kind with our words. And when I was at that event, and what I did was I snuck behind this curtain. I found a little crack in the curtain that took me backstage and gave me access to what was going on stage from the coolest place. There was nobody else there. I was the only one. I was so excited. I was like, score. I can't believe I found this spot where I can get the most amazing, creative, beautiful shots. I hope I don't get busted and kicked out, but I'll just ask for forgiveness later. And it turned out to be amazing. And I do that a lot. And I don't do that for accolades, or I don't do that for compliments. I don't do that for attaboys or none of that. I do that because in my work, I see things in frames. I'm constantly looking for different angles, or I'm climbing under things or on top of things and over things and sneaking. And I see things in frames, and I see angles, and I see how that final project in the editing could be more creative or more dynamic with the different shots and the different angles, and where can I, sneak in or squeeze in to make sure that I capture exactly what I need to capture to make this a dynamic project that the client will absolutely love. And so that's what happened. So she was complimenting me on my ninja skills with my camera. And I didn't do it for any kind of accolades. I do that, and people do those things out of work ethic, or they just do it from the heart, or they just do it without any attachment to any compliment or any outcome, or I don't give to get. Like I don't believe in that at all. I give to give, and if it comes back, it comes back, and the law of reciprocity and karma usually brings that stuff back around, and that's how I feel. But so when she said this, when somebody does recognize your efforts, even though you were never looking for that, never expecting it, not doing it for that, when someone does, it means the world, at least to me, because of the way I grew up. I didn't grow up receiving any of that. And it's funny because when we do, when a lot of people grow up the way that I did, in the very challenging way that I did, and you don't receive those compliments or those words of affirmation. For me, like I told my friend in this text, I even said, like, this means everything to me. I didn't even know how to receive a compliment until I was in my 40s. And I mean that like literally. I would get so uncomfortable with a compliment. Like I can almost feel it a little bit now when I'm just talking about it and I'm not triggered. I'm just saying, like, I can tap into what that felt like. Like I would almost hyperventilate. I would start looking around. I would almost have this like panic attack kind of a thing happening. And I would be like looking around, okay, what else can I do? Can I start to straighten something? Can I change the subject? What can I do to like dodge this? I mean, I had no idea how to handle a compliment until I figured out that the importance of kindness. And so as I have decided to really dive into what that means and why that was something that was so, so hard for me, I ended up really discovering the 5 love languages. And yes, I enjoy gifts. Yes, I enjoy quality time. Oh my gosh. Physical touch, number 2 for me. I absolutely love it. But for me, words of affirmation, just somebody recognizing who I am. And even though that compliment that came through that text was performance-based, the fact that somebody recognized that I was going out of my way to just make sure that I was going to do the best possible job that I could for this client and be the best team member on our team, because there was like several of us there working this whole entire event and making sure that I was never the weak link on this team. And I think that's what's made me successful, in business and what I do, because I want to make sure that whatever I do, I'm not the weak link. And that probably actually, I just thought about this right now, like that probably actually came from my childhood too, because if you were a weak link in the household, that was just not a good thing, right? It's a little hot out here, so need to hydrate. Yeah, so I think that came, I know, like that is another thing that came from growing up in a really challenging environment, that if you look at it later on and you go, okay, what are some of the things that I did learn, that I did take forward, that do serve me today, that I can turn into a positive? Not everything growing up that was negative at that time has to be a negative today in my life or in your life. We can say, okay, how did this situation with my being called a lot of different names that were very difficult to process, a lot of the names that I was called and that we were called at the age that we were being called those names, I didn't even know what those things meant until later on in life. And I was like, oh, that's what that meant. That's not good. That's really derogatory. That's not a compliment at all. And so no wonder I didn't know how to handle a compliment. So when I was reading about words of affirmation and why that is so important to me, it really dawned on me that the value in just being kind to people with words, how important that is. And not only is that important that we do that with other people, and that we really consider our words towards other people in a way that is kind and in the way that is softer. And again, that's been something I've really, really had to work on, because I'm very straightforward, and sometimes my words just, and my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions just come out, and it isn't in the softest way. I'm not saying that it's mean, but it's blunt. And some people, they've had their own traumas in their life, and blunt communication like that can be a real trigger for them, or could be really hurtful for them in the way that they're receiving it. And so I've really had to dive into words of affirmation, not only what those mean to me, but what do those mean to other people? What are words of affirmation that I say to myself? How important is that we take that to a whole other level and not just go, okay, words of affirmation, people complimenting me, that's a really big deal. And the words of affirmation don't even need to be a compliment. It's more of an acknowledgement. It's more of what you didn't go unnoticed. I don't do those things for words of affirmation. I don't do those things for accolades. I don't do those things for anybody to compliment me or any of those things at all. But when someone does notice, and they do share that, and they do say, hey, I noticed what you did, it means so, so much to me. And becoming really self-aware of that, and making sure that you are self-monitoring and you're self-regulating when it comes to how someone's words are affecting you. What kind of reaction are someone's words bringing out in you? And when we're not self-aware enough to even recognize that, that's a really dangerous place to be emotionally. Because after a while, you start kind of taking that on, and you start sort of wearing that as your armor. And it takes away, at least in my case, and I'll speak from a woman's perspective, I don't want armor so thick that it takes away my femininity and it takes away my softness. And because of the way that I grew up, I've really had to step into a masculine role for a good majority of my life, just as a survival strategy. And for me, it doesn't come natural. I am ultra feminine. I love everything about being a woman, and very much about, the traditional role, female role, male role. I love a man that's just a man, and he's very much about his role in life as a man, and taking care of a woman. And I don't care who has any thoughts around what that may sound like. Oh, I need a man to take care of me. That's not what that means. And yesterday is a perfect example. This man asked me to go dancing with him, and when I showed up, and my best friend even told me, all you have to do is show up. And I showed up with the wrong purse. I grabbed the wrong purse, didn't have my driver's license, didn't have my debit cards. And I said, you know what? When a man asks me out, I should never have to reach into my purse for anything but lip gloss anyway. Like, no, he is going to treat me like a lady. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. And saying, I am attracted to and love a man that knows how to treat a woman and knows how to take care of a woman. And I don't mean like, oh, I need a man to take care of me. It's not like that. I love a man that enjoys spoiling a woman and treating her like a lady and making her feel special. There is nothing wrong with that. I completely embrace everything about being feminine and woman and all things female, and a man being a man in his role. I love those traditional roles, and I completely embrace them. And yesterday I showed up, and that's exactly how I showed up, with that energy. And I'm telling you, he treated me like an absolute queen. But we have to treat ourselves that way first, in order to show up that way for other people to recognize and understand that that's where we're at. And you need to meet me in this energetic exchange for this to work. And once you do that for yourself, it's amazing. You start showing up in that way already, when that fragmented self-worth is suddenly rebuilt into something really powerful and meaningful. People notice. And when you walk in, people already go, oh, okay, she's already showing up in a way that I don't mean to say the word command in a bad way, but in a way commands this particular way of being treated. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not conceited. It's not ego. It's not any of that. It is you finally owning and taking ownership of your self-worth and saying, guess what? This is what I need in my life to absolutely shine and glow. And I'm going to give that to myself first. That is number one. So no matter which love language is your number one love language, whether it's words of affirmation like me, or is it acts of kindness? Is it gifts? And I do want to say, is your love language in terms of what you receive the same as what you give? Because they can be different based on, this is the love language that I prefer, that's the most important to me, that kind of lights me up the most in terms of receiving. And it could be different in terms of that love language, in terms of what you give. I love giving people gifts. I love giving words of affirmation too. But for me, I love giving gifts. It's so much fun for me to go shopping for other people versus shopping for myself. I'm not a great shopper for myself at all. So I really, really love going shopping for other people to get them gifts. And I like surprising people for no reason. So I think my love language for giving is definitely gifts. Again, I think it's all important. Quality time is a big deal. But I think for my giving, it's gotta be gifts. Maybe acts of service could be up there too, but yeah, I love gift giving. I love shopping for other people and being thoughtful in that way. But in terms of receiving, yeah, words of affirmation, or is yours physical touch? Is it quality time? Is it acts of service? Is it gift giving? What is it for you? Because the only way people are going to know what your number one love language, and like my friend, if you're needy and you need them all, just say that. Just say, I need them all. I kind of need them all too. But I'm very sensitive. I guess that's the best word to say. I'm really sensitive to words of affirmation because of the way that I grew up. It doesn't matter if it's an employer or one of your close friends or somebody you just met or somebody that you work with or somebody that you're in a love relationship with. You have to take the lead in letting them know what just melts you or what just sets you on fire, however you want to say that. How important is it for us to make sure that we really stand firm in the things that light us up, and we let other people know that this is the way that we need to show up for each other. I need to show up for you in this way. I need to know what your love language is so I can show up for you. But here's mine. It was funny because showing up to go dancing yesterday with this other person that just wanted to meet up and go dancing, who's really, really nice, who I met a few weeks ago. I mean, it was just night and day the way that he showed up yesterday and treated me like a queen. He would get me water, he would open the bottle, he pulled out my chair, we danced all day. It was like anything you need. He was so sweet, walked me to my car, just kissed me on the cheek, incredibly respectful, treated me like an absolute lady, like an absolute queen. And I walked in with that energy, knowing that. I've been listening to Russell Hartley. Me and my best friend have been listening to him, and I'm all in on what he says. Most of what he says, I'm like, heck, yes. I am going to show up with the energy of, I am totally okay letting you know that this is the way that I need to be treated. And this is how I treat myself. I show up put together. I show up with a certain kind of purse, with my makeup done, with my hair done. I don't show up looking like Raggedy Ann. I show up looking put together and looking like this because this is how I treat myself all the time. So if you're going to be with me, guess what? This is how I need to be treated. And so when my friend texted me that and I was reminded of exactly why words of affirmation are so important to me, and how hard I worked on making those fragmented pieces of my self-worth meaningful again, and how important it is not to abandon that. It just struck me like I had to come on here and just talk to all of you about it and say, really, I hope that this just hits a chord with you and takes you back to a place, or takes you into a place where you say, guess what? This is what's important to me. This is what makes me tick. This is the words of affirmation, or the touch that I need, or the quality time that I need, whatever it is for you. Start treating yourself that way first, and then make sure you are taking the lead with making other people aware of exactly what it is you need to live your best leveled up life. And start asking people what their love language is so you can show up for them too. You need to let them know what your love language is. And if saying love language, like the guy that I was just seeing for 9 months, I asked him pretty early on, what is your love language? And he said, I don't speak that language. I mean, hello, if that wasn't like a big red flag that I was just like, oh, haha, that's funny. Oh my gosh, Michelle. Still learning, still growing. Take the lead when it comes to teaching people what your love language is. And if you want to tell me what your love language is, go post it on my social media. Like, go find me on Instagram. It's _Michelle Renee_. Come find me, say hi. I'm all over TikTok doing lots of fun videos and cool things over there on TikTok. Come say hi. I would absolutely love it. Get out there, live your absolute best life unapologetically. Don't worry about what people are going to be thinking. My post today was all about that. I think maybe my next episode will be all about that. How we put ourselves in these cages based on what society puts around us in terms of, boundaries and restrictions and expectations and things like that. And we allow others to build all of these walls, or this, this cage around us that we're afraid to get out of because we're afraid of what other people will think. And I say, yeah, swing that cage door open and get out there and go live your absolute best life. Eat it all up. I think I'll make that my next episode. In the meantime, live with your soul wide open. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next one.